Want to just talk briefly, though, about the markets before we get back to the Henry Kravis and plagiarism and free speech and anti-Semitism issues. You just saw that data come across the tape.
Yes.
Where are you in terms of the markets right now and what you think is happening or not happening?
So on the bond markets, I don't know if you remember, I tweeted that at 5%, I thought the 30-year had kind of gone far enough. We actually reversed our position and went, instead of being short the bond market, we went long the 5-year and the 1-year, again, through these sort of asymmetric instruments at that time. You know, rates have come in a lot. Right. We've kept that position on because we believe rates are going to come in further. I think the data point that came out this morning is sort of confirmatory.
You think there's 3 rate cuts in the offing now? 4? By the way, we had Larry Fink on in the 6 o'clock hour. He actually thought that we may not get those 3 rate cuts. Maybe it's 2.
Yeah, I think he's wrong. I think we have 3, or certainly, remember, 3 rate cuts is 75 basis points off of, call it 5.25, 5.5. That's not a significant move. You know, 3 rate cuts would be like a 15% reduction in rates. Right now, we're, with inflation, cooling very meaningfully, the real cost of money is very high right now. So I think they're going to have to move early, and I think they're going to have to move.
So what does that mean?
It could certainly do more than 3 cuts.
What does that mean both to equities but to the larger economy as we look? Remember, we're in a presidential election year.
Yeah. So I think it's good for equities as long as they bring rates down fast enough to avoid a meaningful recession.
By the way, talking just for a moment, because I mentioned the presidential election, you have been quite active online about the election. At one point, you were supporting or at least talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, who I appear is no longer in the game. But you've also talked, you've been a longtime Democrat, and you've been quite outspoken, it seems, against President Biden. And I think a lot of people are trying to understand your politics today, given sort of where things have moved here.
Sure. So one, I've always been a centrist, always believed in supporting who's ever best for the country, Republican, Independent, Democrat. I think it's really important that Biden steps aside, says he's going to step down. I think he's, just on the age past his prime issue. I think a good part of the reason why we have what's going on in the world geopolitically is he's perceived as a weak president, and he will be even weaker in a year.
Does that mean that you would vote for former President Trump against President Biden right now?
I'll make that decision when I have the choice. But I would say what I'm hugely in favor of, and actually coming here right after this interview, is Dean Phillips. He's going to meet with the whole organization. Dean, a lot of people know who Dean Phillips is. He's a 3-term congressman from Minnesota, considered one of the most bipartisan congressmen, super capable, entrepreneur, Belvedere vodka, that kind of high-end, what's it called, sorbet. But stick with me for a second. He's gone to 26% approval, or 26% of the vote poll in New Hampshire, from nothing in a very short period of time. He's someone people need to take a look at. If Biden steps away, I'd love a world in which, imagine a world in which we have a capable, young, great, motivated, energetic person on the Democratic ticket, and we had something, something similar on the Republican ticket, and you went to the polls, and you weren't sure who to vote for because they're both outstanding candidates. I think Phillips could be very interesting on the Democratic side. And my hope for Vivek was he was going to be that person on the Republican side. I expect he might surprise people. People think he's out of the race. Maybe. But I think Haley is someone, what's interesting, I think, about Haley, and what I think is interesting about Phillips, is that I think Democrats and Republicans can support either of those 2 candidates.
But does that mean that you're anybody but Biden at this point? And the reason I ask is you've also talked, I think, about former President Trump being dangerous historically. And so now you sound open to voting for former President Trump. My goal right now is to have good alternatives to Trump and Biden. That's my goal. But if those are the choices,
I'll make my decision then based on the state of the world. But I can't imagine Biden. I just am stunned that he hasn't said he's stepping aside, and that is very, very. He will lose.
Fair to think that that's a vote for Trump.
Trump will be our next president if Biden is the candidate, for sure. And I think, as Neil Ferguson says, he says if Biden is president. We're in a very, stick with me. His view is the U.S. is at grave risk with Biden staying as president geopolitically, but the Constitution's fine. With Trump as president, he'll keep us safe, but the Constitution's at risk.
Do you think
that's the choice?
Do you think your politics historically, which have leaned to the left, have been a mistake? And I ask because part of the whole political prism with which the arguments around anti-Semitism and DEI and freedom of speech on campus and in bigger institutions is now seen that way. Do you think you made a mistake?
I think that what the Democratic Party, what left means today, is not a party I want to be associated with. And I think that's been a big. I was a Bill Clinton Democrat, and what the party has sort of morphed to is not something I want anything to do with.
Do you want to have something to do with the Republican Party?
I don't want to be part of a party. I like being in the center, and picking the right candidate. I'm tired of the country being about right and left. I want it to be about what's right for the country.
Right.